I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpn.fm to discover more.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams. Today we have another amazing guest. He has a new book coming out that I'm excited to talk about called On Bette Midler. And he was also Skimbleshanks in the U.S. National Tour 4 of Cats. So welcome, Kevin Winkler, and thank you for joining me.
Mike, it's great to be with you. Thanks.
I have talked to a lot of your castmates, and I love it. And then I'm also really excited because I read your book. I appreciate you getting a chance to read it. And I'm so excited to cast cats into Bette Midler movies with you later and talk about your book and the inspiration. But we got to start with cats. So it's fun to talk to. Your tour predates that 1998 movie. And so you don't have that same experience that a lot of the newer castmates have of like they grew up with it or they saw the VHS. Yeah. So I always love to hear, what was your introduction to the show? When did you first see it?
Well, I'll tell you, I actually had a very tortured history of auditioning for this show.
Oh, no.
Did you want to hear that? Do you want to hear that origin story? I knew about the show when it opened in 1981 in London. Of course, it was a huge hit, and it was covered in press, national magazines, newspapers, and so forth. And then when the show was announced for Broadway, of course, that was the show for dancers. So everybody who was a professional dancer was excited to audition for it. And it's hard to remember now, but back in 1981, 82, it was the show everybody was talking about. And when the Schuberts produced the show on Broadway, they gave the show its flagship theater, the Winter Garden, on Broadway, and they moved out 42nd Street, which had opened there about a year and a half earlier and was a huge, huge hit. They moved 42nd Street out into one of their other theaters and did a multi-million-dollar reconfiguration of the orchestra section. They built out the stage into a thrust, and I can't remember all the stuff that they did. I think they did something to the stage floor to hold all the hydraulics and so forth and give it a more environmental staging. And I remember getting the cast recording, the London cast recording, and listening to it. And I actually went to the first Equity Open dance audition for the Broadway production. Wow. And I remember it was February 1982. And the reason I remember this is because I was in another Broadway show at that time that didn't run very long. I think we ran a month, maybe a little longer. And we were running during the month of February. And all the dancers in that show we all went to audition for Cats. These are the open equity dance calls. And the audition was at the Winter Garden Theater. And Gillian Lynn, the choreographer, was there. And it was an absolute madhouse. It was like that opening scene in the movie All That Jazz, where there's a big cattle call audition on stage with hundreds of people. It was just like that, only this was all men. The women had a separate call. And what I remember about it was it being very chaotic. There were literally hundreds of guys on stage trying to learn this combination. We learned the Jellicle Ball combination. And it's not a particularly difficult piece of choreography, but it is if you're trying to see over 50 other guys to learn it. And they didn't give us a lot of time to really get it in our bodies. And we ended up doing it in big groups of like 10 or 15 at a time. And I don't function well at audition, or I didn't function well at auditions like that. And I got cut immediately. But I kept going back. They kept having more auditions. And I just kept going back and auditioning. And the show opened in, I think it was October of 82. And they had auditions for replacements and so forth. And then I can't remember how long, maybe a year went by, and they had auditions for the first national tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been going back, as I said, to the auditions. By this time, I knew the Jellicle Bowl backwards and forwards. I could do it in my sleep. And I started getting kept at the auditions. And I had seen the show after it opened, and I knew that Skimbleshanks was the role for me. I knew that was the role that I wanted to do in the show. And I knew I was fully capable of dancing it. And so, sometimes it's just a matter of getting people to see you,
Yeah.
So national tour, first national tour, I go to the auditions, and I got kept to the very end. Did seemed like several auditions. And I remember during this callback process, they gave us tickets to see the show. So Richard, my husband, and I went to see the show. We'd already seen it once before, but we saw it again. And I went to what I thought was the final callback, and we danced and we sang. And I don't know, it seemed like we were down to 12, 15 guys on the stage that day. And I didn't see anybody else that looked like they were a Skimbleshanks. I saw guys that looked like a Muckastrap or a Tugger or the acro guys, the guys that did acrobatics. And I thought I had it. And they were saying, we start rehearsal on this day. We open in, I think they said either Boston or Chicago. And these are going to be big, pretty lengthy sit-down engagements, 2, 3, 4 months in major cities.
Yeah.
And I thought I had it. And a couple days after the audition, I had to go to Oklahoma, where I'm from, for a family event. And I flew out, and I was literally flying, both literally and figuratively. I thought, I'm getting this national tour. I'll stay with her for a couple of years. I'll put a lot of money in the bank. Richard will come and stay with me. Maybe I can get into the Broadway company, because we knew that the show was going to run forever.
Yeah.
Now and forever. And, I was on a high, and I got home. I was telling everybody, they were all excited for me, and we're going to come and see you, yada, yada. And it was at my mom's house, and I got a call on my answering service to call the casting office. And I remember saying to my mother, I guess they're calling me to set up a time to come in and sign a contract. Yeah. So I called them, and they said, we need to see you tomorrow. And I said,
oh, wow.
I said, what? They said, we need to see you tomorrow. And they didn't tell me, but I found out later that Gillian Lynn needed to see everybody before the casting was final. She had the final okay. And they said, we need to see, we know it's fast, but we need to see everybody tomorrow. I said, I'm at this thing with my family. I couldn't go. I couldn't get back there in time. And I told them this, and they said, oh, okay, thank you. And I said, what? I sounded so pitiful. I think I said something like, does this mean I don't get it? Yes. And they said, oh, don't worry. There'll be lots of other tours. There'll be replacements. The show's going to run a long time. So I put down the phone. I had to go tell everybody that you can cancel your plans to come and see me wherever, because I'm not doing this tour. So I was pretty bummed about that. So I went back to New York, and I kept auditioning for the show, and time went by, I don't know, a year and a half, a long time. And I kept auditioning. And I was doing other, I was working. I did another Broadway show that closed very quickly. I was working and going in and out of town during this time. And then we get to I think the second national tour was the sit down company in LA, right?
Yeah.
So this was the third national, and went to those auditions, got called back, got free tickets to see the show again. I remember the audition process was very long and drawn out. And that summer, this is 1986. This is something like, I want to say June 86. And I had gotten a summer stock tour of the Pirates of Penzance that summer. So we were touring in the New England area.
Okay.
And I was going to be gone for 8 or 10 weeks. And the first city we played was, I can't remember the name of the town, but it was somewhere within driving distance of Boston. So we got to this theater, we were rehearsing. That's the first city we played. And they called me and they said, we need to see you next week for the callback. And I said, well, I'm in whatever town this was. And they said, well, we really need to see you. And so I figured out the logistics and I went to this was maybe the general manager for the theater we were playing. And I asked him if I could borrow one of the theater's company cars and drive to Boston and fly into New York to do this audition the next week. And he said, yes. So, the day of the audition, I got up at something like 4:30 in the morning and I drove to Boston, parked the car at the airport. I took, you're probably too young to remember this, but there were a lot of budget airlines that started popping up in the 80s. And one of the most popular was called People's Express.
Wow. Okay.
And it was a super, super cheap, no frills budget airline. Of course, everything's no frills now.
Yeah.
But back then it was a novelty. And I think you could get a round trip ticket from Boston to New York for something like $29.99.
Wow.
And I remember you had to pay on the plane. They would just swipe your card on the plane.
It's like a bus.
It's like the bus. It's like taking the Greyhound bus, right? So, so I took the plane from Boston to New York. I took a taxi from the airport to the Lyceum Theater where the audition was. I think it was a 10 or a 10:30 audition. Danced for, I don't know, hours. We sang. I think they made some cuts. I was there till the end. And again, I thought this was the final callback. They said, we start rehearsing on this day. We're going to open wherever. I don't remember where it was. And so they said, okay, we'll be in touch. So I left the theater, took a taxi back to the airport, flew back to Boston, got in the car at the airport. I'm looking at my watch saying, oh, it's 5:00. Everything's perfect. The show's not till 8. I'll drive back, get the car back, eat something, warm up, get to the theater. No, everything's working like clockwork. And I got this job.
Yeah.
So I get in the car, I'm driving, I go out of the parking lot, I get onto the freeway and the car dies. The car stops and I literally kind of coasted over to the lip of the freeway. Couldn't figure out what's wrong with this car. No gas is fine. Don't know what's wrong with it. This, of course, is in the days before cell phones.
Yeah.
I think I walked, I don't know, a mile to find a payphone, kept the emergency lights on the car on the freeway, called the theater, said something's happened to the car. They were not happy. They said, stay where you are. We'll send AAA to try to get the car started. So now it's 5:30, 6, 6:30, 7. It took them forever to get there. Now I'm really hungry. They finally arrived. They can't get the car started. So they said, we're going to have to tow it to a garage. Now it's about 7:30. It's half hour. The show's at 8. And I call we get to the garage finally. I call and say, I'm here at the garage. They said, you have to get here. You have to get here. Can't start the show without you. And of course, this is summer stock. So there's no understudies, no swings or anything like that. So they finally let me go. I took a taxi from the garage to the theater. I think the taxi cost me more than the round trip flight to New York.
Yeah.
I got there about, I want to say 10 after 8, 8:15, really late. They're all standing there waiting for it. They slap my pirate hat on me, throw me out on stage. All I remember is doing the first act of Pirates of Penzance in sneakers. So the next day, I find out the car was a total loss. There was something wrong with the transmission or the engine or something, and it was an old car anyway. The producer of the theater was furious with me. He said he was going to bring me up on charges with equity. And I said, I got permission from the general manager to do this. The stage manager of our production of Pirates was mad at me because I said, I'm probably going to give my notice and have to leave the tour a week or two before we end. How could you do this? You don't know how expensive it is to replace someone for a week. The only people who weren't mad at me were the other performers, the other actors of the cast, because they know what it's like to juggle jobs.
For sure.
Line things up, for employment. So I thought, all right, enough of this. I'm going to be leaving soon, and on to Cats. Well, they didn't call. About 3 weeks later, they called and they said, we need to see you back again in 2 or 3 days. It wasn't the next day, but 2 or 3 days. By that time, we were in Maine or New Hampshire, or someplace where I could not physically get into New York. And it was, I guess it was another Gillian Lynn situation where she didn't see everybody. I'm assuming that. And I remember talking to the guy from the casting office and saying, I said, look, I've been auditioning for this show for 4 years. I've been down to the wire on 2 national tours now. I said, can't you extend this courtesy to me and, cast me without having to fly back for, an hour? And the poor guy I was talking to was just a casting assistant. He didn't have any pull. And he said, well, hang on. So he put me on hold for a long time. So I guess he was talking to someone. And I'm thinking, oh, please, let them come back and say, you don't have to come in. So he got back on the phone and he said, no. Yeah. No, you have to come in. So that was the end of that. So Cats 3 was out the window. So I got back to New York and after the Pirates tour, and it wasn't long. I wouldn't say 3 or 4 months maybe. And I was doing something else in between this. 3 or 4 months later, they had auditions for the 4th National, the Bus and Truck. And I remember saying to Richard, I said, I don't care if my mother dies. I am not leaving New York until I get that fucking contract.
Yes.
So, and as it turned out to be the audition process for that tour turned out to be a nothing burger. I think I did 2 auditions. And I guess by that point, by the time they got to the Bus and Truck, Gillian Lynn didn't care anymore. So we didn't have to see, I don't think she ever saw our company. And that's too bad, actually, because it was a really, really good company. And I know several people from Gatchel Neufeld, the general managers, several people said this is one of the strongest companies of Cats that they had. So anyway, I got the contract and I did the show. And I was with the tour I was with the show for a year, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a great time, lots of great experiences, and it was a really wonderful group of people. Yeah, I know you've probably heard that from the people you've interviewed. Really, just a nice, very congenial group of people, and everybody in the show was terrific. The Grisabella, the Muckastrap, the Tugger, the Deuteron, everyone was terrific in the show. And I had a great time. But I think by that point, after all I'd been through, I think the bloom was off the rose a little bit. Yeah. And I remember about the first time we did a series of back-to-back split weeks, where you do 2 shows, sometimes 3 shows in a week. I remember talking to Richard on the phone. I said, I'm going to stay with the show a year. And I said, and if I'm enjoying it, if I'm still enjoying it in a year, I'll stay with it. But if I'm not feeling it, I'm going to leave after a year, because I found the show, there wasn't one particular element of the show that was grueling. It was just the totality of doing the show, which was a tough show to do. It's demanding, and the traveling. We mostly did 1 week stops. There were some 2 week stops, which were great. We mostly did 1 week. So those weren't too bad. And then they would kind of bundle a lot of the split week up. And the split weeks were really tough, where you do, as I said, 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 cities in a week. And I'll stop there. I'm going to start being cranky, but I'll let you ask me questions.
let's stop there before we don't get to the cranky part. I have a couple follow-ups just because I think that it's a fascinating story, because it sounds like it was almost 6 or 7 years from start to finish before starting auditions to casting.
It was about 5 years. 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was 4 or 5 different productions at that point. It was, Tour 1 Broadway, Tour 2 in LA, Tour 3. I mean, you had all the replacements on Broadway, all the different times.
Yeah.
So one question I think is, one is just as you were telling that story, so much of it, I kept thinking, I can't fathom like everything you're dealing with in modern society, if it was today, is solved immediately. You know, like you could just hop on a camera and zoom your way in.
I could go into a studio
your car breaks down, you can get on an Uber real quick. You could just have taken the train from Boston to New York really fast and made it each way. Like there's just so many things that's fascinating to hear. Is like, God, that's hard to deal with back then.
When I think about it, I think, how did I deal with all that?
Yeah.
You just do.
Yeah. The other question I have is, I mean, it sounds like as someone who's not in this world, I'm sure you audition for stuff all the time. Like you're just constantly doing that. Is this so much more that you audition for one show, or because of the desire to get it, or just because it happened to have a lot of opportunity? Like, how does that work? Is it like, were you leaning in as like, I really want cats? Or is it a little bit of like, here's another cat, like there's so many open calls and auditions that I could do. I just happen to have a long history with that, but you also had a long history with Phantom, or, something else that like also had a lot of tours and different productions.
Well, it was a combination, you audition for what's available.
Yeah.
And Cats was, as I said, a phenomenon. It was a long running success. They were always doing auditions. There were always tours. There were always replacements and so forth. So it was always there. And I was, I guess in my dancing prime at that time.
Yeah.
And I remember, so you just go.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I know I can do this show. I can play this role easily. And it's just a matter, again, of people seeing you and just seeing you. So, and it wasn't like I was obsessed with Cats. I wasn't, because I was doing a lot of other things. I was doing lots of other jobs and going in and out of town. And like I said, I did another Broadway show. But it was always there. And it just seemed like, damn it, I should be in this show.
Mm-hmm.
But it just took a little longer than I had anticipated.
Yeah. I want to hear a little bit, because I've talked to a lot of your castmates and really kind of got a lot of the root of what I think was like the introduction to the story and all that different stuff. But I love hearing stories from tour. So fast forward to now, you get it. What were some of those memorable moments, and maybe the positive ones, since you said you had the cranky moments? I want to hear the fun, funny, you'll never forget this for the rest of your life type of things during that year that you were on as Skimbleshanks.
Oh gosh, let's say, I don't know how funny they'll be. Let's say, I was thinking about this because I knew you were going to ask me. I can tell you some of the cities that I loved playing, some of the towns we played that I loved. I really loved the Pacific Northwest, and I hadn't really traveled to that part of the country before. I know we played 2 weeks. We played 2 weeks in Portland. Portland's a beautiful city. I just loved it. Portland, and we played 2 weeks in Seattle. And the 2 week stops were great because you could kind of settle in and have a breather a little bit. And I remember Richard came out and stayed with me when we were in Seattle, and we traveled. We took a day trip to Victoria Island in Vancouver, outside of Vancouver. That was gorgeous. I loved Miami. We played 2 weeks in Miami around Christmas and New Year's. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And the weather was great, and that was just terrific. New Orleans, I really liked. I'm sure you've heard the story about poor Grisabella being mugged the day we get to New Orleans. New Orleans I loved it because we stayed in the Quarter. Our hotels were in the French Quarter.
Okay.
I just loved the Quarter. I didn't feel nervous or apprehensive walking around in the Quarter. I wouldn't go out at, say, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But during the day and the evening, I had no compunction about being out. But the theater we played was just outside the Quarter, and it was in kind of a funky neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so it was, you kind of had to, we didn't like to walk back and forth by ourselves. We travel with others. Oh, I'll tell you something. Oh, I'll tell you a funny story. We played a week in Salt Lake City, and that's the cleanest town I have ever been in my life.
Yeah.
It was the cleanest town. You could eat off the street. And a bunch of us went to, we visited the Mormon Tabernacle, and we visited their visitor center and everything. And they're very aggressive about getting your name and address when you would visit the Mormon Tabernacle and their visitor center and everything. And I remember saying to people, don't put your address down, because they're going to send Mormon boys to your door they're going to send Mormon boys to talk to you. Those guys this is before Book of Mormon. But,
before it got a little popular.
Right, but they're going to send those boys with white shirts and black ties to your house.
Yeah, mission trips for sure.
I can't remember who it was, but a couple of people wrote their name and address, and some of them were living with their parents at the time. And sure enough, about a month later, Mormon boys showed up at their parents' house in New Jersey or Nebraska or wherever. To talk to their Catholic mother or their Jewish mother or whoever. So that was kind of funny. I'm sure you've heard about the fire that swept through one of the buses.
Yes.
That was early in the tour. We had flown into Nashville, and we took buses from the airport to the hotel. And I wasn't on the bus that caught fire, but half the cast was. And it was the engine or something, and no one was hurt, but it destroyed all of their luggage, their clothes, everything. I mean, I have to say, everyone kind of handled that like, very Zen-like. They were pretty cool about it. And I think I probably would have had a nervous breakdown if that had happened to me. But most people didn't have an issue with it. I'll tell you something I really loved about the tour. Seriously, and this may sound superficial, but it's great to be in a hit.
Yeah,
it's always good to be in a show that people really want to see. And Cats, like I said, was a phenomenon, and everybody knew about it. There were all these big companies of the show out. It was Cats was really the first big mega musical to come along. This was before Les Mis, before Phantom of the Opera, before Miss Saigon. So we were almost felt like rock stars when we would come into a town, especially a smaller town. And we were sold out all the time. Once in a blue moon, you'd see a few pockets of empty seats here and there, but we were sold out all the time. Standing ovations, every place we played, and people loved the show. And it was also, it also had intergenerational appeal. So people brought their kids. It was a family event for a lot of people. And so it was thrilling, really, to do the show and, to be treated like that. And it feels good, to be in a hit. It makes some of the schlepping worth it.
Yeah. I think it's the tours are interesting too, because, growing up in Indiana, they get 5 to 8 Broadway on tour shows a year, and you get this, the season gets announced, and there's usually, I'm not going to throw any shows under the bus, but there's usually a few where you're like, wow, that is going to be awesome. Like really excited. And there's usually 1 or 2 where like, yeah, okay.
Maybe.
We'll see. And they have a lot of season ticket holders who buy the whole season. And I've been to a couple where, pre-moving to New York, where I went, and then I was excited for it in high school or whatever. And then the season ticket holders are usually an older generation, weren't. And they showed up and leave, 10 minutes in or halfway in. Cats was never that. Cats falls into that bucket of, we know what this is. This is big. We're going to go see it. And so it's fun when you have a show like that. It's definitely, the anticipation is high because, we just had Hamilton last year, I think, in Indiana, came through, and every night, as filled as it can be, everyone's super excited. And, you get that energy from it because it's only there for a week or 2 weeks, and then it's another couple months before the next thing comes through.
Well, exactly. You know, Cats was really a kind of an anchor show for a lot of season ticket. Seasons. People would buy a show, like you said, based on, you know, Catsby or Hamilton today or Mamma Mia 15 years ago or whatever.
I think Mamma Mia is anchoring again. It's back on the circle.
It never goes away. So, it felt good. And, you know, everyone who's ever been in show business has had the other experience of being in shows that weren't very popular and where you were playing to half-empty houses. And that's always a drag.
Yeah, it's got to be harder. You got to bring the energy.
So it's great to do it, to be in a hit. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died. I want to make sure we talk about your book and spend some time here. So I read it. I was fascinated by it because you, very early in the book, you wrote something that I was like, this is me. And it like kind of stuck with me. And then I learned a ton as I read it, is that you said that there's a whole generation of people that grew up knowing her mostly from Hocus Pocus or from like the more newer things and not this like vast history of her before. Yeah. And that was me. I knew her from The First Wives Club, Hocus Pocus, like that couple section movie just based on my age. And then I learned a ton about, like, it was fascinating to read your history. So I want to first start by like, how did you decide? I know you've written a couple books. How did you decide to tackle this topic?
Well, I'd written 2 other books about choreographers. One was about Bob Fosse, and the other was about Tommy Tune. And you know, I've been a long-term fan of Bette Midler's. I'm not a crazy fan. I'm not someone who, if she's playing 3 nights in the city, I don't go all 3 nights. But I followed her career very intently, and she spoke to me. I think she spoke to a lot of people of my generation, certainly a lot of gay men of my generation, because she was kind of a maverick, kind of outside the mainstream. And she spoke to us in a way that a lot of performers don't to gay men. But her appeal went much further than just gay men. Mm-hmm. But I had come to feel that over the last, I don't know, X number of years, people didn't really know who she was. Just as you said, you know, people knew her from The First Wives Club or Hocus Pocus and so forth. And, you know, celebrity is very fleeting. As I get older, I'm continuously caught up short by how many like actors or singers or musical groups or playwrights who were so important to me when I was growing up, who loomed so large in popular culture, no one really knows about, you know?
Yeah.
So, I felt like she's someone whose career needed to be talked about and written about. And I thought, well, why don't I do that?
Yeah.
If someone's going to do it, why not me? And so I really wanted to make the book a deep dive into her career as a multi-platform artist, as someone who has had a tremendous success and influence, both as a stage star, because she's really, when you get down to it, she's really first and foremost a theater artist.
Yeah.
A recording artist, an actor in movies, and what I call kind of a TV personality.
Yep.
You know, a presence on television. And I wanted to get deep and really go into some deep cut on the Midler career.
Yeah. It was a lot of things I definitely did not know about. But you know, I'm also probably not the core audience of her and the just given just the time that she really had most of her fame and career was when I was extremely young or even predate me.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting to read because, like you just said, it's the multi-hyphenate piece of it of what she, like, the bouncing back and forth between all these different things and being so good at all of them almost makes it a little challenging of like, your book highlights this so well, but her career maybe didn't have that peak or that arc that others have because it wasn't like, I'm just the movie star of movie stars or I'm the number one Broadway person. It's like you kind of did a little bit jack of all trades of sorts and did so much so well that it's like you're well known in pockets, but not like historically well known in all the rest.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen The Rose?
No, and I was looking through just her IMDb just to see what the TV and movie film credits were. Like that was where I started as I was, after reading your book, and then also just we'll get to casting cats into it a little bit. And I was like, the couple, what you're known for, it was Beaches, I think, Gypsy, the Roses, and then it was Hocus Pocus, First Wife, Stepford Wives, some of the other ones. But I was like, there's a whole lot on here. There's I think a Seinfeld credit, and there's there's a bunch of like The Nanny and like single episode credits on there where I was like, at that point, of course you know who she is. Like she probably popped in for a cameo on a bunch of these things too.
Playing herself. She played herself.
Yeah, played herself. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But The Rose, I hope you get a chance to see that sometime, because that was her first film. And if you watch that film, she was stupendous in that film. She changed the way she moved. She changed the way she sang. It was a tremendous performance. And it's a movie that's kind of been forgotten. And she's never had a role like that since 1979. And that's a film that, I don't know, I don't think it's on any streaming platform.
I was just looking up right now to see if
it's on.
I'm looking. I don't see it on anything right now.
No. And it's really a shame. It's kind of been lost. And it's one of the greatest performances in a film I've ever seen. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's anywhere.
Yeah, it's really, and then she had a big run of popular comedies in the 80s. Down and Out in Beverly Hills, Ruthless People, Outrageous Fortune, a Big Business. These are big hits. She was one of the top box office stars.
Yeah.
That period. But it seemed, now it seems so long ago.
Yeah. It looks like you can rent it. So this is going to be our way around.
The Rose,
you can rent it on Amazon and a couple other things.
There's a terrific Criterion disc of The Rose on the.
Okay.
That's fantastic. And there are interviews with her and the people who put the music together and so forth.
Okay. I gotta add that to the list here.
Add that to your list. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I want to cast. This is the game I wanted to play with you, with Bette Midler. So I picked some of the movies, and what I want to do is I like thinking, I picked the ones I've seen, or at least I know enough about, or the couple I didn't know anything about that I just read the synopsis and did my best. What I want to do is I want to take which cat character, so like which Skimbleshanks, McCavity, Grisabella, Tugger, Gus, whoever, could we insert into the movie and they would fit fine in the way that the movie was built, the characters, the story, like who would fit best in the movie and like what role would they play?
Oh my God.
If we just added them in. I think this is the fun way to do this. So I'm going to start and challenge you on The Rose because I don't know anything about this movie. So I'm going to have you tell me which cat can we put in The Rose?
Well, she played in The Rose. The Rose is sort of a fictionalized story inspired by the story of Janis Joplin.
Okay.
Whose flame burned bright and then died out very, very early. So I would say Grisabella could give Rose a run for her money in terms of galvanizing the audience and out-singing her. She could do a sing-off with The Rose between Grizz and The Rose. I think it'd be a toss-up as to who would come out on top.
I like it.
So I'd say Grizz for The Rose.
Okay, yeah, there's another troubled star with a ton of talent.
Exactly.
Okay, let's do Hocus Pocus.
Oh my God! Let's say. All right. The Hocus Pocus, both the Hocus Pocus movies. There's a cat that that plays a prominent role. So I would say, I don't know, either McCavity or maybe Mr. Mistopheles. I could see that cat turning into a singing, dancing, cavorting cat doing a virtuoso ballet turn all over the screen.
Definitely. So I had both those written down too. Those are the exact two I wrote down. Because I thought the same thing. I actually just rewatched it because it was the whatever anniversary of Hocus Pocus. They put it back in movie theaters.
It was the 30th anniversary. Yeah.
So they put him back in theaters, and I actually went around Halloween and saw it in theaters again, and it was such a fun rewatch to be sitting in like a really big AMC type of theater. But yeah, I thought McCavity or Mistopheles, and I think I based the same thing as I thought about the cat in the movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, which one fits? Okay, let's do Beaches.
Oh, Beaches. All right. Let's see. Beaches. Well, the character she played in Beaches was sort of kind of modeled on Midler herself, a very flamboyant singer actress who was always talking too much and getting herself in trouble. Let's say I could see Bon Ballerina or Demeter dropping in to do a sexy McCavity as kind of doing a special guest appearance.
Yeah.
During one of the onstage moments in that film.
So I haven't seen this movie. I had to kind of like read up on it. And it sounds like it's her like reliving her career almost. So I wrote Gus into it of like,
oh, that's a great idea.
Here's this moment of before
of reflection on his former glory. Yeah, that's a more apt character to put there. Yeah.
Okay.
I hadn't thought of that.
The reason I also is I tried not to overlap. So we'll go to the next one, which is The First Wives Club.
Oh, well, there you got Bon Ballerina.
That's where I had. Yep, that's where I had the two of them. They're perfectly fit for that movie. What about Stepford Wives?
Oh my God! Well, anything goes with that. Let's say Stepford Wives.
I think the one I picked, I'd be very shocked if you say.
Who was Jelly Loram? Now I'm forgetting. Who was Jelly Loram?
She was Gus's caretaker.
Okay, who was the female character who does the dance at the beginning early in the show?
Jenny Anydots?
Jenny Anydots.
Yeah.
I can see Jenny Anydots kind of popping in there in Stepford, USA.
Definitely. So that was one of the first things I wrote down. But then I kind of thought about it at a different angle. And I thought with the way it kind of works that maybe Bustopher is one of the husbands. Oh. Like maybe he's fit as one of the husbands. He lives this posh life and eats heavy. And
I hadn't thought about that. Yes, that's a much more apt character to drop into the Stepford Wives. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about him.
We got to do one more. What about Gypsy?
Well, Gypsy is a stage mother.
Yeah.
And it takes place in the world of vaudeville and burlesque. So let's say, there's nobody who strips in Cats. Oh, well, why not Skimbleshanks? He has a specialty. Okay. He has a specialty number in Cats. I could see him plop down onto a vaudeville stage. Why not?
One of my first jokes I made, because when I knew very little about Cats, was I was concerned watching Skimbleshanks because it looks like he strips his clothes off. And I think it's like someone explained to me that he's taking his clothes off to get put into pajamas or whatever, like to go on the train.
Oh, yeah.
It's just part of the choreography. But the first time I saw it, I'm like, is he taking his pants off? Like, what's going on here? So, yeah. So I think that fits. I had put Grisabella here because I did not have her in the rows. I just thought with her troubled past that maybe the part where she wasn't with the tribe like we have the little bit before and then we have her returning. We don't really know what happens in the other part. Sounds like it wasn't good. I thought maybe that's part of her story.
Yeah. I thought that would work too. But I still like Skimble. I'm very partial to Skimble, I have to say, having played the part.
I love it. Well, so how can people get the book? When's it come out? I'll link everything too as well.
Right. Thank you. Well, the official pub date is May 21st.
Great.
But I know the last time I talked to Oxford publisher, they said they're going to start sending pre-pub copy. If you order from Amazon, for instance, they'll start sending those pre-pub copies out end of this month.
Okay.
So
yeah, this will come out right around the publishing date anyway. So
cool.
If you basically at this point, go order it and you'll get it.
Go order it and buy it at a bookstore. If you can find a bookstore these days.
Yeah.
There's
still some.
There's some, especially
support
in New
local
York.
bookstores. Yeah. Support local bookstores if you can. That'd be great. Although you're gonna have to go to Amazon to watch The Rose, so you're gonna
while
come
you're
buy the book from
watching The
bookstores.
Rose, order the book.
Yeah. Okay, let's do some rapid fire.
Okay.
If you could be on for Cats for one night only, does not matter, male, female, any character. If you could just perform one night, who would you want to perform as?
Oh my God. Let's say. Well, I always wanted to get on that tire. So I guess I'd say Grisabella, since she has the showstopper.
Yeah.
She's got the showstopper. And if I could sing like that, I'd be very happy.
Yeah,
sing like that and then go to heaven. And then ride the magic tire. I would definitely do that.
15 minutes on stage. That's all you
need. That's all you need.
Who are your favorite and least favorite characters? Which cats do you love and which cats were you just like, I could deal without?
Oh, that Jenny Any Dot I thought was annoying. I could do without her.
All right. I love that you answered that first, because I usually have to pull people to like criticize a cat, and you're just like, nope, Jenny Any.
Any Dots, no, forget it.
Okay. Who are your favorite?
Oh, my favorite. Well, I'm Team Skimble. I'm Team Skimble.
Well, I want to take Skimble out because I know, like, obviously you performed as him for a year. You have a liking, and you said at the very beginning that you are Skimble through and through, as a, you knew right away.
Yeah.
So let's take Skimble out. Who's your favorite non-Skimble? All right.
Cat? Let's say. Well, I loved McCavity because he just sort of shows up as this phantom in this fabulous costume, scares everybody to death, and then gut leads.
Yeah.
So I always was a little partial to McCavity.
Okay, I love it. What's your favorite song from the show?
I think I like the McCavity song that Baum and Demeter
Me
did.
too.
That was one of my favorites. Yeah.
Okay. I always ask one fun one, and we did casting cats into Bette Midler, but I want to ask if you were going to cast Bette Midler at Cats at any point in her career. So it doesn't have to be now, it could be early. Who would you want her to perform as?
I think there are a number of roles she could play.
Okay, let's hear them all.
She could. Well, I think obvious because there's so much drama in surrounding the character. She should be a great Grisabella because of the drama. She would bring the drama to that character. But I think she could vamp. She could vamp as Baum and Demeter in the McCavity number. She could, even though I find the character annoying, she would be funny as Jenny Any Dots. And I could also see her because of she has a maternal, nurturing quality to her. I could also see her as Jelly Lorem.
Yeah. I have one that I think I would love to see. So I thought Grisabella too. I was like, and I agree with you. She could do the rest because of her humor and how like witty and like she can be a little all over the place in a good way. She could be such a good Tugger because she would be able to kind of go, there's a little bit more freedom to kind of improvise in that one, like in that particular character that I could see, like there was in 2016, I think Tugger used to occasionally come out into the crowd and, she would just, I think, live off of that freedom.
Yeah. There's a little bit of the divine Miss M in Tugger. Or she could bring the divine Miss M to Tugger, definitely. Oh, that's a great idea. I hadn't thought about cross-gender casting, but that's great.
They're just cats. They're all just cats.
They're just cats.
I try not to, you can't really think too much about it.
That's good. I'm thinking too binary.
Okay, $1 million question. And I hope you were ready for this, but I've argued at length that I don't think Grisabella is the right Jellicle choice. So I want to hear you, Kevin, if you are making your Jellicle choice, who are you picking?
Mike, I think you know the answer. I am Team Skimble all the way.
I love it.
I'm Team Skimble.
So give Skimble's defense.
First, he's one of the older cats. He's a contemporary of Grisabella's. And so he's older. He deserves the rest. He's been putting that damn train together for years. I think of the tire as sort of, his assisted living center in the sky. So he deserves his rest. Up he goes.
I love it. Yeah. I think he does not get a lot of like thought into this choice even though he is on the older side for the, in the generationally, he falls in that first bucket. Because he's kind of viewed as the uncle, and he comes in and he's got this like upbeat kind of bouncing around song, but he deserves consideration. I agree.
I don't know, maybe I'm feeling that way now because I'm of a certain age. And actually my relationship with a lot of the people in that tour was actually kind of similar to Skimble and the younger kid, because a lot of the people in the tour were much younger than me. And the older I get, the more I think Skimble deserves his props. And I think of it as that great assisted living setter in the sky, and he's deserving of it.
I love it. There's that's any non-Grisabella vote is a good vote in my book. So
what do you have against Grisabella?
Honestly, nothing. I don't have anything against it. Against her. I think it's a wonderful number. I thoroughly enjoyed every piece of that. I just my real take. I mean, this started as a joke. It started as a very quick one-liner, witty joke. I don't think that if you're telling the redemption story, I don't like the idea of the redemption story ending, at least the way I originally interpret it, with murdering her. It's like, if you view it from a reborn and is coming back, I just like, if you spend all this time getting your family to reaccept you, spend some time with them, like enjoy that moment. And so that's my biggest kind of argument against her is I want her to have that moment. I want that same story, but I want her to spend the whole year with her family.
That's a nice way of putting it. That's a nice nice big-hearted observation about her.
It took me 160 episodes to get to that, where we are. I originally made a joke because I just thought I saw my original Grisabella was on the X Factor. And that was the lens I came into the show with, was this feels like an X Factor on drugs. Like everyone's singing, it's like each cat is doing their song for competition to win at the end. And I was like, it's kind of weird. It's a little off. They're cats. They're bouncing around. There's this like a little interlude in the middle where they tell a story. There's some like weird dance numbers in the part that doesn't feel like it's them trying to tell their things. I kind of like, that very first viewing for me was what am I watching? Yeah. Because I knew nothing going in. I couldn't have told you a single thing besides memory going into that show. And so having that, knowing that this was an X Factor person, I think that's what brought me into that view. And at the very end, I kind of like walked out with what performances were the most memorable? Obviously memory is going to be that, but I loved Tugger and Mustopheles' numbers. I thought Mungo, Jerry, and Rumple Teaser is the only song I sang for the next like month.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then McCavity is like incredible to like listen to, and the dance and the two of them together. So I just was like, if I'm America voting, I'm not sure I'm picking memory. Yeah. And that's kind of the root of where I started this argument was, I'm not sure I'm picking it. Now I've evolved it to where I have my heartfelt, don't kill her, let her live with her family. But it all stemmed from that.
That's a really interesting take. That's an interesting take. And I don't know if I've ever talked to anyone who came to the show and knew nothing about it.
I knew.
How old were you when you saw it?
Oh, I mean, I just moved here to New York, so I was in my 20s. It wasn't, so the thing is, growing up in Indiana, when it came through and it was all the regional stuff, my mom brought my sister. She just never brought me. I grew up playing sports. I grew up playing hockey. I was probably traveling around the Midwest playing hockey. And it just was one of those things that it wasn't that we were avoiding it. It just didn't happen. And then I moved I think like it opened in 2016. I think it opened in June of 2016. I moved to New York in May of 2016.
This is the revival. Cats. Yes. Yeah.
And so I just ended up at a preview, and because I was, at that point I knew I loved going to theater. I was always entertained by musicals. I was living down the street from them all. Yeah. And when you're in New York, it's very different. I think the thing about theater is that there's conversations about its accessibility right now with cost and all the other stuff. Yeah. But when you live here with lotteries and Rush and a lot of other things, if you can go on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night
On the spur of the moment.
On the spur of the moment, then you can really go in a very accessible moment.
Yeah.
Now, that's not accessible to most other people,
Yeah.
which is the challenge.
Yeah.
But I was living so close that if I finished work early, I could just walk to a theater, buy a ticket for a fairly inexpensive price, and have an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And so I had known Cats from the punchlines because it's in Friends and Family Guy and Kimmy Schmidt and all the Modern Family. There's all of these moments, but I knew memory was the only music I knew.
Yeah.
And I probably to a detriment to myself, I don't like to go in knowing anything. I don't listen to cast recordings before. I don't like read synopsises. All I ask at this point is runtime, just like how long am I going to be sitting there? Because I like to know that. And maybe just like, is it uplifting, sad? Like, just like give me the emotions that I might be feeling. And it's gotten me into some trouble because I've walked into some very, very heavy shows that I did not know were very heavy. And I've walked into some where I did not know they were hilarious and loved it. And, but I've always done that. I like to go in cold. And so there's some things now it's like you can't avoid with social media and just in general. And, but there's still plenty of these like original, deep Broadway things that if it's pre-2016, I probably know very little about it. And it kind of makes it fun because it makes it fun for this show in itself because people are in all these other things. I've never seen Chorus Line. I've never seen I've never seen Gypsy. I've never seen a lot of these like classics because they weren't here when I was here. And that has made it fun.
Well, they're always doing Gypsy. So the next time they do a revival of Gypsy, you'll have to go.
There's a lot that's happening even this year that I can't wait, that I'm like, really want to go. I mean, Sunset Boulevard's coming to New York. There's all these, I'm trying to figure out if I can get to the West End to see Starlight Express. And there's all these different things happening. And I love when they're being revived. Like I saw Spamalot a couple times recently. And I mean, things that, again, I didn't know a lot about it because it predates my theater experience.
What you need to go see? City Center Encores in June is doing Titanic. And you've got to go see that because that's a really great score. That's a terrific score.
It's on my plans.
Yeah.
There's a very good theater person who's used to work with our network and everything, who I'm pretty sure is the reason that they're doing that show.
Really?
Because it's like her obsession with Titanic is bar none. And so she's hyped up so many people to go see that show that I'm in that bucket.
Good. Oh, you'll like it. You'll enjoy it.
And if not, I'll just go back to Titanic and I'll get the hilarious version of it. It's very different. But
they're two sides of the same coin.
Oh, yeah.
They're two sides of the same coin.
This has been so fun. I encourage everyone to go get your book, and I'll link it so everyone can find it and give it a read and enjoy we'll have to all go watch The Rose and talk about it after.
Please.
So thank you for coming on and sharing your story.
This is great, Mike. This has been fantastic. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for the shout out for the book. I really appreciate it. And rock on, Skimble.
All right. Yeah. We got another Skimble vote, adding that to the list. So this has been fun. So thank you. And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at The Wrong Cat Died, or check our website, thewrongcatdied.com.